You know that feeling when the world just stops? Like your ears are full of cotton and you can hear your own heartbeat? That's what happened when Tracy from HR slid that paper across her stupid IKEA desk. 60% pay cut. Effective immediately. I just sat there, staring at the number like it might change if I looked at it hard enough. 60 fucking percent. I didn't cry. Not there, anyway. I smiled. Actually smiled. And said, I'll need 24 hours to consider this offer. Like I was some kind of corporate robot. Like I hadn't just been gutted. The crying happened in my car. Heaving. Ugly. Mascara everywhere, sobbing that fogged up my windows. I sat in the parking garage for 45 minutes. Just breaking. Because what do you do when the company you've given 9 years of your life to decides you're worth less than half of what they paid you yesterday? Sorry, I should introduce myself. I'm Eleanor Reeves, Ellie, 36, single mom to an amazing 10-year-old boy named Lucas. And up until that meeting, I was the Director of Client Solutions at Merrickson Technologies. God, this is still hard to talk about, even 3 years later. If you're watching this, could you just hit like or subscribe or whatever? Or leave a comment telling me where you're watching from? I need to know I'm not screaming into the void here. That someone else understands what it's like to have your entire life threatened in a 15-minute meeting. Anyway, Merrickson. I started there when it was just 20 people in a converted warehouse. The kind of startup where everyone believes they're changing the world, you know? We had the ping pong table, the free snacks, the happy hours, all that bullshit that seems so meaningful until it isn't. I was hired as a client manager, but I worked my ass off. Stayed late, came in weekends, missed school events, postponed vacations, all the things you're not supposed to do, but you do anyway because you're building something, because you believe in it. And I was good, really good. Within 3 years, I was managing our top 10 accounts clients that brought in over 70% of our revenue. I knew their systems, their problems, their birthdays, their kids' names. These weren't just accounts to me. They were relationships I had personally built. When Lucas's dad decided fatherhood and marriage were stifling his potential and moved to Austin with a yoga instructor named Sky, yes, really, those client relationships became even more important. They weren't just my career. They were my lifeline, my security. By year 5, I was promoted to director. I had a team of 8. I had equity. I had a salary that meant I could afford our mortgage and Lucas's asthma medications without having to choose between groceries and utilities. For the first time since the divorce, I could breathe. Then Martech Corporation bought us. God, I can still remember the all-hands meeting. Vernon Chang, our founder, standing on that little stage in the cafeteria, telling us how exciting this next chapter would be. How Martech's resources would help us scale our vision. Everyone clapping like seals while I sat there wondering why Vernon couldn't look any of us in the eye. $3 million. That's what I found out later he got in the acquisition. $3 million. And he was fully vested. The rest of us? Our equity was worth pennies, with 4 more years to vest under the new terms. The first 6 months weren't terrible. New email signatures, new procedures, more meetings. But I still had my team, my clients, my salary. Then the redundancy assessments started. First, they came for the junior people, then middle management. Each time, there was a company-wide email about streamlining operations and leveraging synergies. Each time, someone's desk would be empty the next day. No goodbyes. Just gone. I kept my head down, worked harder. My team shrank from 8 to 3, but our client load didn't decrease. If anything, it got worse. I was working 70-hour weeks, answering emails at 3 a.m., having panic attacks in the bathroom between meetings. Lucas started asking why I was always on my laptop, why I couldn't come to his soccer games, why I looked so tired all the time. And still, I thought I was safe. I was managing the relationships that brought in most of our revenue. They needed me. That's what I told myself right up until Tracy from HR scheduled that quick touch base. I should have known something was wrong when I walked in and saw Dennis Porter from Martech sitting there. Dennis with his 2 white veneers and his Rolex that he made sure everyone noticed. Dennis, who'd been sent from corporate to optimize the acquisition. Eleanor, he said. He never called me Ellie. We've been looking at the org structure, and we feel there's an opportunity to realign your compensation with market standards. Market standards. Like I was a fucking commodity. Tracy slid the paper across. The new salary was right there, in bold. $52,000, down from $130,000. This reflects the changing nature of your role, Dennis said, like he was telling me I'd won a prize. We're centralizing most client management functions at headquarters. You'll be transitioning to more of a regional support position. Translation. We're taking your clients, your authority, and most of your paycheck, but we still need you to do the work. You'll maintain your current responsibilities during the transition period, of course, he added. Of course. We need your decision by tomorrow, Tracy said, not meeting my eyes. If this new arrangement doesn't work for you, we understand. But we'll need to immediately begin searching for someone who's aligned with our new structure. Someone cheaper, she meant. Someone desperate. They knew I was a single mom. They knew about Lucas's medical needs. They knew about my mortgage. This wasn't a negotiation. It was an execution. I need 24 hours, I said, voice steady despite the screaming in my head. I have some questions about the transition plan and reporting structure. Dennis nodded, pleased with my professionalism. Tracy looked relieved that I wasn't causing a scene. I don't remember walking back to my desk. I don't remember packing up my laptop. I just remember sitting in my car, shaking, wondering how I was going to tell Lucas we might lose our house. That's when my phone rang. Kira Chen, my old colleague who'd left Merrickson 6 months earlier. I almost didn't answer. But then I thought, what the hell? Maybe she was calling to catch up. Maybe I could pretend for 5 minutes that my life wasn't imploding. Hey stranger, I said, trying to sound normal. Ellie, she said. I've been trying to reach you all week. Have you checked your LinkedIn messages? I hadn't. I'd been too busy keeping the clients happy, keeping my team from quitting, keeping everything from falling apart. Listen, Kira said. I'm at Nexus now. You know they're MarTech's biggest competitor, right? My boss has been asking about you. A lot. We need someone with your client experience. Would you be open to a conversation? I looked at the Merrickson building through my windshield, at the logo they'd replaced our original one with. I thought about Dennis and his watch and his veneers. I thought about Vernon Chang, who'd sold us out and disappeared to his beach house in Malibu. Actually, I said, I think tonight would be perfect. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing. I wasn't stupid. I knew what calling MarTech's competitor would mean. There'd be no going back. But they'd already decided I was disposable. What did I owe them? When I got home, I paid the babysitter, checked on Lucas, already asleep, I'd missed bedtime again, and opened my laptop. I spent an hour looking through my employment contract. No non-compete clause. Merrickson had been too small, too idealistic when I joined to bother with those. MarTech had issued new contracts to later hires, but they hadn't gotten around to us legacy employees yet. Their mistake. At 9:30, I called Kira back. Can you set up a meeting with your boss? Tomorrow morning, before I have to give Merrickson my answer about something. That bad? She asked. Worse, I said. They're cutting my salary by 60% but keeping all my responsibilities. Actually, adding more. Kira was quiet for a moment, then, those fuckers. Yeah. Give me 15 minutes, she said. I'm texting Cameron right now. Cameron Reed, the CEO of Nexus Technologies, MarTech's biggest rival and the company that had been trying to get our clients for years. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. Eleanor? This is Cameron Reed from Nexus. Kira tells me we need to meet first thing tomorrow. His voice was warm, direct. No corporate bullshit. Yes, I said. I think we might be able to help each other. I'm guessing MarTech is finally doing their post-acquisition purge? Something like that. How does 7:30 a.m. sound? I can meet you at the Westside Cafe, away from both our offices. Kira says you have a decision to make tomorrow. 7:30 works, I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. After we hung up, I sat on my couch for a long time, staring at nothing. Was I really doing this? Was I really considering jumping ship to the competition? But it wasn't a ship anymore, was it? It was a sinking lifeboat, and Martech was throwing people overboard to save themselves. I opened my laptop again and pulled up my client files, not the official CRM data that belonged to the company, but my personal notes. 9 years of relationship details. Who to call when contracts got stuck in legal. Which CTOs were planning system overhauls. Which companies were unhappy with Martech's recent service changes. Information that wasn't confidential exactly, but was valuable. Very valuable. I'd built these relationships. I'd earned this knowledge. And tomorrow I was going to find out what it was worth. I closed my laptop and checked on Lucas again, watching him sleep for a few minutes. His little chest rising and falling, the inhaler on his nightstand, the science fair ribbon pinned to his bulletin board. "I'm going to fix this," I whispered. "I promise." I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay awake thinking about what I was about to do, wondering if I was being impulsive, wondering if I was being disloyal. But loyal to what? A company that no longer existed except as a line item on Martech's balance sheet? People who saw me as nothing but a number they could cut? By morning, I knew exactly what I was going to say to Cameron Reed and to Dennis Porter. I dressed carefully. My best suit, the one I saved for closing big deals. Hair perfect, makeup flawless, armor. I dropped Lucas at school, hugged him extra tight, and told him I loved him. "You okay, Mom?" he asked, looking up at me with his serious little face. "I will be," I said. And for the first time in months, I believed it. The Westside Cafe was quiet at 7:30. Just a few early risers with laptops and commuter mugs. Cameron was easy to spot, tall, silver at the temples, dressed casually but expensively. Kira sat beside him, gave me a small wave. I took a deep breath and walked over to their table. "Eleanor Reeves?" Cameron stood, offered his hand. "I've heard a lot about you. From Kira, of course, and from just about every client we've tried and failed to steal from Merrickson over the years." I smiled. "Well, those clients might be more open to conversations now." Cameron's eyebrows raised. "Is that right? Why don't you sit down and tell me exactly what's happening over there?" So I did. All of it. The acquisition, the culture change, the way they were gutting the company while expecting the same results, the impossible workloads, the pay cut. Cameron listened without interrupting. When I finished, he glanced at Kira, then back at me. "Ellie," he said, "we've been waiting for you to call us for a long time. We've been waiting for you to call us for a long time." That sentence hung in the air between us. I remember taking a sip of my coffee to buy myself a moment, because suddenly this wasn't just about saving my job. This was about something bigger. "What exactly does that mean?" I asked. Cameron leaned forward. "It means we've tried to recruit you 3 times over the past 2 years. Each time your loyalty to Merrickson won out. But Martech doesn't deserve that loyalty. And frankly, we're prepared to make you an offer that shows exactly how much we value your relationships and expertise." He pushed a folder across the table. Inside was an offer letter. Director of Strategic Partnerships. $165,000. Base salary. 25% annual bonus potential. Health benefits that would cover Lucas's medications completely. Stock options. This is... I couldn't finish the sentence. "Fair market value for someone with your skills and client book," Cameron said. "Plus a signing bonus if you can start within 2 weeks." I stared at the number. It was $35,000. More than I'd been making at Merrickson. More than 3 times what Martech was offering me. "Why?" I asked. "Why this much?" Cameron didn't hesitate. "Because we've lost 8 major contracts to Merrickson in the past 4 years. All accounts you managed. Because our research tells us that when clients work with you, their retention rate is 94%, compared to an industry average of 71%. Because I've personally had 3 CTOs tell me they stay with Merrickson because of you." He took a sip of his coffee. "You're not just an account manager, Eleanor. You're a competitive advantage, one that Martech is too stupid to recognize." I felt something shift inside me. A lifetime of being underestimated, of working twice as hard for half the credit, of smiling through meetings where men repeated my ideas louder and got praised for them. And here was someone who actually saw my value. "There's one more thing," Kira said quietly. "Tell her, Cameron." Cameron nodded. "We've heard rumors that Martech is planning to move all client services overseas within 8 months. They're using these pay cuts to push people out so they don't have to pay severance." My stomach dropped. "How do you know that?" "Their new VP of operations came from Teledyne. He did the same thing there 3 years ago. It's his playbook." 8 months. They weren't just cutting my pay. They were eliminating my job entirely. They just wanted me to train my replacement first. "I need to pick up my son from school at 3:30, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. "But I can come back to Nexus with you right now. I'd like to see the office before I make a final decision." Cameron smiled. "Of course. And we'd like you to meet the team." 3 hours later, I walked back into Martech Regional Office 8, with a signed offer letter from Nexus in my bag and a plan forming in my mind. Dennis was waiting in the conference room, looking impatient. Tracy sat beside him, a folder with my name on it in front of her. "Eleanor," Dennis said, not bothering to stand, "have you made your decision?" I sat down across from them, placed my hands flat on the table, smiled. "I have some questions first," I said. Dennis sighed theatrically. "We really need a simple yes or no today. As we explained, we're restructuring the entire department." "I understand, but I manage our 10 largest accounts. I'd like to know who will be handling the Westfield implementation next month and the Alder contract renewal in June." Dennis waved his hand dismissively. "We'll distribute those responsibilities appropriately. That's not something you need to worry about." "Actually, I do worry about it. I promised Sonia at Westfield that I'd personally oversee their transition, and Mark at Alder specifically asked for my involvement in the renewal discussions." "Those are company relationships, not personal ones," Dennis said, his voice hardening. "Now, about the offer. Is it true you're moving client services overseas in 8 months?" I asked. The color drained from Dennis's face. Tracy suddenly became very interested in her folder. "Where did you hear that?" Dennis asked. "Is it true?" "That's confidential company information." "So that's a yes." I leaned forward. "Were you planning to tell me that before or after I accepted a 60% pay cut to train my replacement?" "This meeting is about your current offer, not hypothetical future restructuring," Dennis said, his jaw tight. "Now, do you accept the new terms or not?" I took a deep breath, thought about Lucas, about our house, about 9 years of my life. "I quit." The words hung in the air between us. Dennis blinked. "Excuse me?" "I quit. Effective immediately." He recovered quickly, his face settling into a smug smile. "I'm afraid company policy requires 2 weeks' notice from director-level employees." "Check my contract," I said. "The original Merrickson contract that was never updated after the acquisition. It states that notice periods are equivalent to severance periods. Since Merrickson never offered severance beyond 1 week, that's my required notice." The smile faltered. "You'll need to transition your accounts." "Actually, I don't. My contract also states that in the event of a compensation reduction exceeding 15%, all transition requirements are waived." I stood up. "That was added after Trey Miller quit and tried to hold his clients hostage for a better severance package. You might not remember that, since you weren't here, but I helped Vernon draft that clause." Dennis was turning an interesting shade of red. Tracy looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. "You can't just walk out on your responsibilities," Dennis sputtered. "Watch me." I turned to go, then paused at the door. "Oh, and I've accepted a position with Nexus Technologies. Since Merrickson never implemented a non-compete agreement and Martech never asked me to sign one, I'll be starting there on Monday." The explosion I expected didn't come. Instead, Dennis's face went completely blank, which was somehow more terrifying. "You've just made a serious mistake," he said quietly. "We'll be reviewing all of your communications and client interactions. If we find even a hint that you've been poaching clients or sharing proprietary information, we'll bury you in litigation." I felt a chill. Not because I'd done anything wrong, I hadn't, but because I knew how these things went. Big companies with deep pockets could make your life hell, even if you were completely innocent. I haven't taken anything that doesn't belong to me, I said. My client relationships, though, the trust I've built over 9 years, that belongs to me, and I'm taking it with me. I walked out before he could respond, heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. My team was waiting at my desk. Maria, Devin, and Priya, the last survivors of what had once been 8. They knew. Of course they knew. News travels fast in dying companies. Is it true? Priya asked. You're leaving? I nodded. What about us? Devin looked terrified. He had a baby on the way. Check your emails in an hour, I said quietly. All of you. I packed my desk quickly. Family photos. The stupid world's best boss mug my team had given me as a joke 2 Christmases ago. The emergency inhaler I kept for Lucas. 9 years of my life fit into one cardboard box. Security escorted me out. Company policy for high-level departures, they said. Like I was suddenly a threat. Like I hadn't given almost a decade of my life to this place. I didn't cry this time. Not in the elevator. Not in the lobby. Not even in my car. Instead, I pulled out my phone and made 3 calls. First, to Cameron. I've quit. They took it about as well as you'd expect. We'll have legal ready, he said. Don't worry. Second, to my old boss, Vernon Chang. He picked up on the 4th ring, sounding like he was on a beach somewhere. Ellie? Is everything okay? Not really, Vernon. Martech just tried to cut my salary by 60%. I quit and took a job with Nexus. Silence. Then, shit. I'm sorry, Ellie. The acquisition wasn't supposed to go like this. But it did, I said. And now they're threatening to sue me for accepting another job. A job that pays me what I'm actually worth. More silence. What do you need from me? I need you to remind them that you never implemented non-competes at Merrickson because you said, and I quote, if we don't treat people well enough to make them want to stay, we deserve to lose them. Vernon sighed. I'll call Gerald Martech myself. This isn't right. My third call was to Sonia West, CTO at Westfield International, our biggest client. The client whose system implementation was scheduled for next month. Sonia, it's Ellie Reeves. Ellie, I was just about to call you. We need to move up the timeline on the implementation by 2 weeks. The board... Sonia, I interrupted gently. I'm not with Merrickson anymore. As of today. The shock in her voice was audible. What? Where are you going? Nexus Technologies. Cameron Reed's company? Our backup vendor? Yes. There was a long pause. Is this because of the Martech acquisition? We've been worried about that ourselves. Service has been slipping. It is. They're making major changes, including removing me from your account. Another pause. Without telling us? Yes. Who's taking over the implementation? They wouldn't tell me. Bullshit, Sonia said. And that's why I loved her. 20 years in tech had stripped away any corporate niceties. This implementation is critical for us. The board is watching it personally. We specifically requested you in the contract. I know, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Send me your new contact info at Nexus. We need to talk. By the time I picked Lucas up from school, I'd received 14 text messages and 23 emails. 6 from my team, forwarding messages from Dennis instructing them to maintain client continuity and prepare transition documents for all my accounts. 1 from Vernon, confirming he'd spoken to Gerald Martech directly, and the rest from clients who'd somehow already heard I was leaving. Mom? Lucas climbed into the car, immediately sensing something was different. Why are you picking me up? It's not Friday. I turned to look at him. This beautiful, serious little boy who deserved so much better than a mother who was always working, always stressed, always one bad month away from financial disaster. I left my job today, I said simply. His eyes widened. The one you're always working at? The one that makes you cry sometimes when you think I'm asleep? My heart broke a little. Of course he'd noticed. Yeah, that one. Good, he said firmly. I didn't like how they treated you. Out of the mouths of babes. I got a new job, I told him. One that pays better and will give me more time with you, and better insurance for your asthma medications. He considered this. Will you be able to come to my science fair next month? Front row, I promised, with embarrassing signs and everything. He grinned. Cool. That night, after Lucas was asleep, my phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. Is this Eleanor Reeves? A man's voice, unfamiliar. Yes. This is Gerald Martek. I understand we have a situation. My blood ran cold. The founder and CEO of Martek Corporation, calling me personally. Mr. Martek, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Yes, I suppose we do. Vernon Chang called me. He's very upset about how you've been treated. I said nothing, waited. I've also received calls from Sonia West at Westfield and Mark Chen at Alder Technologies, both expressing concern about your departure and hinting they may need to reevaluate their vendor relationships. Still, I waited. Ms. Reeves, are you actively encouraging our clients to follow you to Nexus? No, sir. I've simply informed them that I'm no longer with the company. They've drawn their own conclusions. Dennis Porter tells a different story. Dennis Porter offered me a 60% pay cut without any reduction in responsibilities, didn't tell me the position was being eliminated in 8 months, and then threatened to sue me for accepting another job. So you'll forgive me if I don't put much stock in his version of events. Silence. Then, the pay cut and outsourcing plan were not approved by me or the executive committee. And yet they happened. Another silence. What would it take to bring you back? To repair this situation? I almost laughed. You can't be serious. I'm very serious. Westfield and Alder represent over 20 million in annual contracts. If they leave, others will follow. We've run the numbers. It would be significantly less expensive to keep you than to lose those accounts. Now I did laugh. So I'm worth keeping if it costs you millions to lose me, but not if it just makes my life impossible? Do you hear yourself, Mr. Martek? Business is business, Ms. Reeves. I'm trying to offer you an opportunity here. No, thank you. I've accepted a position with Nexus, one that values me appropriately from the start, not just when you realize how badly you've screwed up. We're prepared to match their offer, plus a retention bonus. It's not about the money, I said, surprised to find I meant it. It's about respect. It's about 9 years of my life that your company dismissed without a thought. It's about the fact that you're calling me now, not because how I was treated was wrong, but because it's becoming expensive. What do you want then? He sounded genuinely confused. I want you to treat the people who are still there better than you treated me. I want you to look at what Dennis Porter is doing to that office and ask yourself if that's really the company you want to build. That's it? That's all you want? That, and for you to stop threatening to sue me for taking a new job. I didn't steal anything. I didn't poach anyone. I simply refused to be devalued. There was a long pause. No lawsuit, he finally said. You have my word. As for the rest, I'll be visiting the regional office next week to see things for myself. 3 days later, I started at Nexus. They gave me a real office, not a cubicle. My team, yes, I got to build my own team included Maria and Devin, who'd quit Martek the day after I left. Priya stayed behind. Her visa was tied to her employment there. 2 weeks after that, Dennis Porter was pursuing other opportunities. Tracy from HR too. A month later, Sonia West called to tell me Westfield was moving their business to Nexus. The implementation team they sent couldn't find their way out of a paper bag, she said. And when I complained, they told me my expectations were unrealistic. Mark Chen from Alder followed 2 months after that, then Briarwood Systems, then TetraCorp. By the 6-month mark, 5 of my former top 10 clients had moved to Nexus. Not because I poached them, I was scrupulously careful never to initiate those conversations, but because relationships matter. Trust matters. And when you've spent years proving yourself, people notice when you're gone. Gerald Martek kept his word. There was no lawsuit. There was, however, a complete restructuring of the regional office. The overseas transition was quietly abandoned. Salaries were adjusted to better align with market standards. Too little, too late for many, including me. It's been 3 years now. I'm still at Nexus Executive Vice President of Client Success. I have a team of 22. I make more money than I ever thought possible. Most importantly, I make it home for dinner with Lucas almost every night. I haven't missed a science fair or a soccer game in years. Last month, I ran into Vernon Chang at a tech conference. He gave me a hug, told me he was proud of me, said leaving Merrickson was the best career move I could have made. I should have protected you all better, he said, looking genuinely regretful. I thought Martech would keep their promises. It's business, I said, echoing Gerald Martech's words to me. Nothing personal. But that's a lie, isn't it? It's always personal. Our work, our worth, our lives, they're deeply, intensely personal. Pretending otherwise is just a way for companies to treat people as disposable. The real revenge wasn't the clients who followed me. It wasn't Dennis getting fired or Martech losing millions. It wasn't even my beautiful new office or my big salary. The real revenge was discovering my own value, standing up and saying, "No, I am worth more than this. I deserve better." And then going out and creating that better for myself. I think about that meeting with Tracy and Dennis sometimes. That paper sliding across the desk. That moment when they thought they had all the power, and I had none. They were wrong. We all have power. Sometimes we just need to be pushed to our breaking point before we realize it. So if you're watching this, and you're in a job that doesn't value you, that treats you like you're lucky to be there when they're actually lucky to have you know this, you have options. You have power. You have worth. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting back at anyone. It's about getting away and building something better. Even if it takes just one phone call to change everything.